Hey everybody, take a look at your screen. We have music legends and veterans of the music industry joining us here. We are very excited to have George Whitty, multi-Grammy winning George Whitty joining us here, keyboardist, producer extraordinaire, and the incomparable. He's always on fire. He's always lighting the stages on fire. He is a real go-getter. The wonderful Ellis Hall is joining us, the ambassador of soul. Yes, we're so excited about it. And they have combined together to create some fabulous new music. And we're excited about all of that. First, let me tell you about our great guests that are joining us. First, let's tell you about George's background. First of all, we would have to do a 2-hour show just to talk about all the accomplishments that George Whitty has done in the industry. They are true legends, and they have this wonderful, long mutual admiration society, and they've created this official partnership, the two. But George himself is truly an incredible musician, composer, record producer, audio engineer, music educator. He won an Emmy in 2014 for his work as a composer for the television series All My Children, and produced 3 Grammy Award-winning CDs as well. Most recently, Randy Brecker's 34th and Lex. George was also nominated for Emmy Awards for his composing on the long-running TV shows One Life to Live and As the World Turns. And also, as a musician, he has played and recorded with artists such as Dave Matthews, Santana, Celine Dion, Michael and Randy Brecker, 4 years on the road, 7 albums, Chaka Khan and Richard Bona, and so many others, Grover Washington Jr. He has also performed with Herbie Hancock and Wayne Shorter, Color Santana, as we mentioned, Marcus Miller, Dave Holland, and Zakir Hussain. He is somebody that absolutely loves the music industry. He's so immersed in it, and it's our pleasure to welcome him to the show. And then we have another great guest who's joining us, and they, again, are 2 iconic individuals in the industry, the one and only ambassador of soul. We are graced to have Ellis Hall with us here on the show as well. And Ellis, too, is somebody who has made his mark in the music industry for so long. He was born in Savannah, Georgia, and known professionally as Ellis Hall. He's an American singer and songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, actor, and composer. And he's been described as the ambassador of soul. And Ellis has been blind since the age of 18, citing Ray Charles as his inspiration. He's written over 4,000 soul, gospel, blues, and pop songs, and has performed and recorded with Stevie Wonder, James Taylor, Natalie Cole, Patti LaBelle, Toby Keith, Herbie Hancock, George Benson, Bobby Womack. I mean, this is everybody. Sheila E., Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire, Tower of Power, of course, many years with Tower of Power, and the iconic Ray Charles, just to mention a few. And he was the voice in the California Raisins commercial, along with the voice in numerous movies as composer, actor, and accompanist as well. And that's just the short list for these 2 amazing gentlemen who have come together to create something extra special for all of us. And there you see them on the screen together having so much fun. Gang, there are decades of incredible music on your screen with the 2 of them right now. New music, die living. We're going to tell you what that means, what it's all about, and their passions for it as they join us in just a second here on the Jim Masters Show. Great to have everybody with us. Thanks for joining us from all around the world. It's a pleasure to have you here. And don't forget to comment and interact with us here on the show. We love hearing from our viewers. It means the world to us. Before we welcome these music legends on our show, and they're excited, they're poised, and they're ready to go, we want to show you just a little behind the scenes of the 2 of them chatting together about music and more. Take a look at this, and then our guests will be right here for me and for you.
Who was the first one you went out with? You remember that?
The first band I went out with was Matt Guitar Murphy.
You're kidding!
No.
Wait, this is going to blow your mind. Wait. Matt and I used to jam so often, even before he was in the Blues Brothers band.
Wow.
Yeah,
that
we've
was,
known each other.
Because that came out in like 90 or 77, right?
No, let's see.
78.
Actually, 81.
Okay.
Just before Belushi passed. Yeah.
Well, that was a serious road going gig because I picked up the band. I was working on a cruise ship in Florida in 1986.
And you survived.
Well, and not only that, but that was a great experience.
Wow.
But like the first night I got on the band, I met them in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
I played half the show, and we drove to Houston overnight.
Whoa.
And played in Houston.
And here they are, gang. George Whitty and Ellis Hall joining us live on the show. Welcome, gentlemen. So great to have you with us here.
Pleasure to be here, Jim.
I love that little chat in the beginning there. We showed you guys talking about some of the old memories. Cool stuff. How long have the two of you known each other?
Yeah.
Not long enough.
Wow, that's a great answer. Most people say the opposite, too long.
No, I knew of Ellis since about 1988 when I first saw him playing with Tower of Power.
Yes.
And then, we kind of ply the same waters, but it's surprising that, I mean, Ellis had worked with everybody but me until Alec Burfield, the manager of our CD, brought us together a couple years ago, right, Ellis? Like
always, Alec.
Year.
Yep, that's right. Always causing trouble. But Alec had told me about you, brother, in 2012. So, but I'd heard of you before, but never intensely in my sphere or orbit, as they say. Until Alec said, you got to work with this guy. I said, I want to work with a whole bunch
which
of
is amazing.
And then, of course,
yeah.
At this juncture, our first dive or deep dive into the world of what, before it became what, Whitty Hall Artist Team, was a song called Hug Me, lifting up the Ukrainian spirit in all of us. And I pray, Jim, that you get to hear this.
Oh, yes, I have. Yes.
Oh, you have.
So beautiful. Yes.
My God. We knew George with his finger sensibilities and beyond, just twisting and turning a chordal structure. How about that for a deep, intense dive?
I like that.
Wow, Ellis, I'm going to have to take a nap after that. That's just too much for me. What is it? 11:30? Hug Me was a remake of a Ukrainian pop song or Ukrainian rock song by a really great singer over there. We tried to see if we could get him to sing a verse and a chorus.
Yes.
But we took that and it was like a power, like a real rock and roll song. And we sort of opened it up and let it unfold in stages and added some different harmony. Ellis wrote some really great new lyrics to it that to us are just sort of like, sending love and support from the two of us and from the United States to the Ukrainian people for what they're going through over there.
And beyond. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it is so fantastic. You mentioned Tower of Power and, of course, Ellis being so beautifully involved in that fabulous group. Tell us about those years and the time with the incomparable Tower of Power, Ellis.
I'll tell you, working with those guys, one of the funniest things is I had to learn like 21 tunes in 2 days, essentially. So, and that's talking lyric, the keyboards and all that stuff, that's fine, but Emilio had to whisper in my ears a lot of the lyric. I was reading some things in Braille, but it was the funniest thing. And then I said, one day, of course, we have that song, What Is Hip? Tell me if you think you know. But one time on the gig, I told the audience, I said, well, as we get a little older, we kind of metamorph, and it's, oh, my hip. And you should have seen the people fall out their chairs. It was crazy funny. But working with those guys, I literally say I got my edumacation. That's beyond the education, because, and they had those horns. You better step up and do what you do, and always not act, but you better mean it. Otherwise, they will knock you off the stage. And we've had many people try to follow us, including the Beach Boys. And Carl Wilson told me personally, he says, why did we ever try and follow you guys?
Yeah.
I said, are you kidding? Y'all living legends?
Now, when I was on the road in the 90s, I was on the road with this really incredible band, the Brecker Brothers, which was a super funky band, you know, real like great virtuosity. That's a picture you're showing there of us. Randy reconvened most of the band, and it's been really fun to redo these. But the only band, we would go do all these big festivals in Europe and stuff like that. And the only band that Michael Brecker didn't want to follow was Tower of Power. No. And I've seen a lot of double bills with Tower at the front. And I'm like, man, you people really made a mistake, because nobody can follow that band.
No one.
It's just not done. The energy, the funk, the throbbing bass that comes out of that band, the killer horns. They always have a crusher vocalist, the best of which, I'm just going to opine here, was Ellis Hall.
No, Lord.
You don't
I
want to
had always
Tower.
heard that whenever Tower of Power has performed anywhere, the next day they've had to bring the roofing people back in to redo the roof because they lifted the roof off.
If they can find the roof.
If they can find the roof.
It becomes an open air venue. What's the problem?
Exactly. Well, Ellis, you know, growing up, what were some of those inspirations for you that brought you into the world of musicianship and music and art? Did you grow up in a home filled with music and art and the love of it all? What inspired you to partake in it early on?
You know, that's a great question, because one of the first things I remember, because my pops and my mom always had the music on, and I remember Dale, Dale, and how it was echoing through the little transistor radio speakers. And then my dad, that's the sound of the men working on the chain gang. And that's one of the first songs that actually made me cry. Give me water, I'm thirsty now. When I heard that line, I don't even know why, because I was very young, had to be about 9 or 10. I just started crying, you know, because that intensity of him being out on that road, you know, so not to get too deep about it, but I wasn't interested necessarily in playing music, although in school, you know, they teach me all these piano lessons. My teacher would go, but I'd go, and the teacher come in, Ellis Hall, and I go back to. So
get you a powdered wig, Ellis.
Yeah,
That'll fix you up.
Yeah,
they didn't need detention hall in that school. They had Ellis Hall.
I just tell you, but at 14, brother, and I told George this and a few others, I had my epiphany. My older brother took me into this club I had no business being in. At the time, it was called Jim Nance's Lounge, famous football player. I snuck into that club, and at that time, I have glaucoma, but I still had some vision, a lot of vision in my left eye. And with my watering eyes, I'm looking at these guys playing their instruments and driving the audience into a frenzy. I wasn't looking at the audience, and I said, that's what I'm supposed to do. And ironically, brother, the name of the group was Quint Harris and the Preachers. And I mention that because in the group was this most amazing organist who was playing later for the Parliament Funkadelic by the name of Bernie Worrell. If you haven't heard his music, he's passed on now, but monster player. And he was doing things with that organ The drummer was kicking, the sax was kicking. And then later, they backed up a group called Chubby and the Turnpikes, who later became Tavares. They put on a good show, but that first band warming up hurt me and a whole bunch of other people in that little, what I call ghetto lounge.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's where it all sort of began.
That's where literally I went home like a house of fire. I put a drum set together. I learned how to play bass, including messing up my mom's, what she called a wash tub. I made a hole in it and made a wash tub bass. Seriously. It's
yeah.
That's
it.
Whoa.
You used whatever was in the house. Yeah.
What you doing with my broom and my wash tub?
We had something similar. We used to do plays in the garage and sometimes plays in the bedroom as kids. And sometimes we'd take a rope and we would take like curtains or drapes or whatever we would see. And then, of course, Mom would come in and saying, are those my good drapes?
Yes.
They were.
Yeah. How about you, George? Early on, you've been doing this for a long time, and the two of you, like I said, are responsible for so much joy and so much pleasure and so many hours of incredible music. And you two have worked with so many greats as well, as you and Ellis are greats. What early on growing up for you sort of led you in the direction of music and art and entertainment?
Keep it clean, George.
What's that, Ellis?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume you sent me love. So my mother had this policy that all 6 of her kids would take some kind of artistic endeavor on from 3rd grade through 8th grade, 6 years. And if you didn't pick something else like ballet or flute or calligraphy or something, it defaulted to the piano. So I started to learn to play the piano. I liked it in a way, but in a way I wasn't that down with it until the very end of that time. I could tell that I was good at it, but I wasn't so much a fan of like older classical stuff. But I had this wise piano teacher who started giving me like ragtime piano. I loved that. I had a book of Dave Brubeck tunes that were hard as hell to play these things. It was all written out. And I loved to play that. And so by the time I was out of 8th grade, I kind of kept going. And then there was a band in my junior high school, and I wasn't in it, but the kid that was in it just seemed like he was Keith Emerson or something to me. He was just this kid. And so I was like, well, that looks like it would be really cool. Might make me a little bit of a celebrity in my junior high school. So I started kind of looking at music. And when I joined the RCA record club, that thing where you got 6 records for $1 or whatever it was.
Right. That in Columbia. Remember those? Yeah.
I think I was the RCA. And the records I got were Barry Manilow, Weekend in New England, Captain and Tennille, Song of Joy, Soundtrack to Godspell, Frampton Comes Alive, which I still listen to today.
Good one.
So I went in to look at this magazine. I was in a music store, and there was a keyboard magazine that had Chick Corea on the front. I didn't know who that was. And Daryl Dragon was on either in that magazine or another. So I bought these things, and I said to myself, well, I should go get some of these records. This guy sounds like he knows what he's doing. And that was the end of it. The die was cast. And shortly after that, I found a George Duke record that was super important to me. I found a Herbie Hancock record. Thrust was the first Herbie record I got. And I got a Weather Report record. And all this music just called out to me. It was like this, and up until then, the plan had been that I was going to become some sort of a marine biologist or a scuba diver. And these things, just the records, the power of the music on these records and the soul of the music on these records completely spun me around. And I became determined that I was going to at least give it a shot at being a musician. But we didn't have Bernie Worrell in my town. I'm just going to put that out there, Ellis Hall. Yeah, there was nobody to listen to that was in that world. So my parents sent me to the Berklee College of Music on a leap of faith. They said, we'll give you whatever money it would have cost you to go to a state school. Go to Berklee as long as it lasts. It lasted 2 years. Got a lot out of that, a lot out of a couple of years of private lessons after that. And, you know, the rest is going to be history before long.
Yeah, and he's still causing trouble after all that.
You're still right. But, you know, you've also had opportunities to, I mean, you actually created music that was for daytime dramas too, for the soap operas. I mentioned All My Children,
A lot of it.
One Life to Live, and As the World Turns, for those that are watching that love the daytime dramas and all the music within. What was that like, providing music for the soap operas?
You know what, Jim?
That was a super. Go ahead, Ellis.
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. I want to tell you how kismet and interesting this world is. He was heavy duty in soap operas, and I've done, although we hadn't met yet, movies to soap operas. I got, I think it was nominated for an Emmy for a song I wrote called "I Found Myself in You" with my dear friend Judd Friedman, for a movie. I mean, it didn't last too long. It's called Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara on NBC, yes.
Yeah, and they took our sound, they took the demo, and they said, we love this so much, through God's grace, we're going to put this in as it is. Wow. And they got so many requests for people to play it. I couldn't believe it. Later, a friend of mine, Clay Cross, great gospel artist, he did a remake of my song, and I actually ended up singing background and playing on it. But how funny songs are. And George working with All My Children, I've done some other things for them too, but I'm just saying, we've been following each other around. George, I see you following me. I'm following you, for God's sake.
I just want you to sign.
You know why, Ellis? Because there's only one life to live.
Well, yeah. The thing about the soaps, I kind of stumbled into that gig the way that you do when you live in New York City. I answered an ad for a mixing engineer, and I was at kind of a weird lull for a few months between touring gigs. So I answered it, and it was a guy named David Nickturn who wrote Midnight at the Oasis. Oh, and he was working on a few different soaps, and he said, I know who you are. I think you should try writing for this stuff. So I said, sure, I'll try writing. And
so did you work at all with one of the major houses for music, the incomparable Score Productions?
No, I was just ghostwriting for David.
Wow.
And it was just a thing where if you had a day, you would kick out a 3-minute soap cue. And what I did was I took some footage of those shows that didn't have dialogue or didn't have music under the dialogue, and I would play it on a loop so I could have the look of it and the dialogue of it to write under. Because, soaps were super cheap operations. They kind of looked cheap.
Yeah.
They filmed
overly dramatic and
unbelievable, right. Just a blistering schedule. My brother acted in one for a bit. And he said, as long as nobody died during the take, that was the take. They didn't go back and do 10 takes to try to
no.
They had to,
all on video. Yeah.
Right. Wow. But so I found that with a certain kind of dimension from the music, it made it look way more expensive and play way more dramatically. Oh, yeah. But we weren't scoring to scenes. So what you were doing was writing cues that were, light tension was the most common one.
And then they can insert it in the particular scene later.
Exactly. And if you wrote the right kind of thing, it got a lot of play. The one cue that no one ever pleased the music supervisors with was the sex cue. What do you do when the characters are supposed to be, in bed together?
And what would that sound like? Can you whistle?
Well, the first instinct, and I hate to say it, is a little bit of a bump and grind.
Usually there's a whistle involved, right?
But they didn't want that. And so it's like, how do you convey this passion And I wrote big sweeping things with strings for like, oh, it's, you know, transporting. And nah, we're not.
Did it involve a kettle drum at all?
You mean like boom?
Yeah.
Depends on the actor and actress, I guess. No, but so I actually wrote 250 pieces of music for them, and it was in many ways it was the best gig I ever had. Just if I had a day,
It was constant, right? Probably
yeah.
constant.
And you know, I would watch the show to see what of mine they were using and how they were using it, and if not mine, which of the other composers they were using. Yeah. And some days you would see like 11 minutes of your cues go by, and it's like, gee, I just made $800 for watching TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, because they would use it a lot, exactly, for every scene, for that dramatic effect, that the underscoring, and
it really helped to make the show something you could take seriously.
Yeah, there's some great music. I love production music. I've always, you know, I work in television and radio, and I have for years. So I love some of that production music, the jingle singers, the jingle music. That's all really good stuff. I mean, it's folks like you, accomplished musicians and composers, arrangers, who get hired to create this stuff for a brand or a network or a show or a movie. And some of that is incredible music that we don't always think about because it was done for underscoring or backing of something. And did you guys get into the world of jingles at all? Did you ever touch into the jingle world?
Budweiser. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Budweiser paid my rent for 5 years.
Budweiser.
Budweiser, you really make it work. You really make it work, and this bus for you. And I had to say Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri. and the first time I heard it was on a Super Bowl game.
Oh, of all the
time. Oh my God, that pays your rent for a couple years.
5 freaking years, because residuals, and I've done Burger King, I've done McDonald's over the years. You know, just working with all these things. And then there's a television show called The Wonder Years. And they did very well, because I sang for, I don't know whose wedding it was. It was one of the, I think it was a brother, the older brother. And they had me singing, I call it Alice in Wonderland. And then I had to do some Jim Croce. So I had to switch colors.
Those are beautiful songs. I would love to hear you sing some Jim Croce.
I listen, singing
The Cat's in the Cradle.
Bad Brown and Time in a Bottle.
Oh, that's Chapin, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I you know, anything to celebrate. And it's so funny because in our shows, it's called Soul Unlimited, and I do a tan version of David Bowie and James Taylor, and you know, all these different people, and people are looking at me when I'm playing my guitar, singing a little James, but I have to always Ellisize it. George hasn't seen those kind of concerts yet, but already we have a camaraderie in what we're doing in the What project.
So describe, Ellis, for our audience. What is it like when something is Ellersized?
Ellersized? What it is I will take and I will twist a melody, but keep true to the melody, but always make sure you're paying attention with the extra color I'm going to do with my voice. I love that. Or with a little guitar lick, or a keyboard lick if I'm in George's world for a minute. Whatever it takes to make sure you're paying attention. You know, otherwise it will knock you right over and run you over like a train through God's grace.
Ellis, you got the keyboard right there, right?
I do. Yes, I do.
You want to give us a little Elton John? Just 15 seconds?
Wait. I'll go to here. Holy Moses, let us live in peace. Let us try to find a way to make our hatred cease. There's a man over there. What's his color? I don't care. He's my brother. Let us live in peace. Something like
Wow.
What's the tune you sing for that Spectrasonics thing again?
Oh, that's the that's
This is on YouTube. People can check this out.
Hold me close, a tiny dancer.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing is? Greg Fillinganes was the leader of our madness. He was a musical director, and I only sang that song in the sound check, you know, to make sure everything's working. And he said, "What are you doing with that song?" I said, "I'm not doing anything. I'm just sound checking." He said, "No,
I'm Ellisizing it. That is the definition of Ellisizing.
Yeah.
Right. He said, "You're singing," and I could feel him pointing his finger at me. "You're singing that at the actual show." I said, "Wait a minute. I got to show the band." And he said, "No, the band's not involved. You
don't need it."
And the rest is history. And when I got to the chorus, Brother George and Jim, 600 people sounded like 50,000 when they sang the chorus. You'll see, Jim, when you find the process, when you see it, it's like, oh my God, we're up on this roof of this Hollywood hotel. I can't even remember the name of the hotel, and it was through God's grace and just an extended. And that's the way George and I feel when we're bringing music in and out of the studio to you guys. When we do our first performance, woo, Lord.
So how did the idea of this project come to fruition? I know it's something that is near and dear to your heart. It's something you've been working on. You sort of committed full throttle to recording your explosive contemporary twists on classic R&B and came up with this clever branding idea rather than simply calling yourselves Whitty Hall. This artistic team, you created what? I love this.
Exclamation points. That's right.
Yes, with those exclamation points.
Turnpikes.
Yeah, stop it.
Ellis had a better idea. I would have been chubby, I'm afraid.
No. But you know what's interesting? I mentioned earlier when we came together on Hug Me, and we realized it'd been a long time we were trying to get together. We knew, and I'm trying to remember the first after Hug Me, the first tune that we cut. I think it was the tune we co-wrote, Brother Own Up. I think that was the second tune that we worked on.
That was the next one, yeah.
Was that the next? Man, I'm telling you, something to roll over your face and make you like it.
I first saw Ellis in 1988 at the Bottom Line in New York. And I was already a Tower of Power lover. I saw them every time they came to New York. They always played at the Bottom Line, and that room would just throb. It was it's still the greatest shows I've ever seen. And then one day I'm there, and there's Ellis singing and playing. And it's like the whole thing was already in 7th gear, like went to 9th gear. So I've been a fan forever. And then Alec Burfield got this idea that I think it was his brother Guy and him, somehow between the two of them, they cooked up this idea that we would do this tune for Ukraine.
Yes.
And we just did it. We didn't make any money for it or anything like that, but it was a beautiful experience. And I'm getting these tracks from Ellis, not just the lead vocal, but the background vocals. I never heard anything like this. Maybe when I worked with Chaka Khan, I produced a couple tunes for her. And she does all her own background vocals. They're completely off the hook. Yeah. But I realized right away, this could be the very best project I've ever done because I'm working with this mad genius here. I mean, just when he was singing just now on your show, I still get shivers down my spine hearing his take on things.
Yes.
So once we got into it, I think we both felt like this is not an average CD making experience. This is something incredibly special, and we're going to leave nothing on the floor with this one. We're going to go all out. So we filled it with tons of great harmony, great lyrics. super funky grooves. But that we did Hug Me, and we had so much fun with it, and it was just came out so beautifully.
Yeah.
That we decided to keep going, and Alec and our executive producer David Ford kind of put together a package to make it work. And we've been working on it. When it's a project like this, you work on it right up till the very second you have to turn it in. And we mastered the record. What was it, last Wednesday, Alec? I think on the
no, that's right. Well, you can call me Alec too. I sort of look like
sorry, Ellis.
He's been talking to Alec so much. Yeah.
Right. And the guy that mastered it did a really great job, Eric Boulanger at the bakery in Los Angeles. But right then, it's like now you can't twiddle with it anymore.
No,
and Ellis and I would get together and twiddle on it and work on the mixes and make sure it was as beautiful and clear and funky as we could make it. So it's been just a tremendous experience.
And
Ellis is incredibly difficult to work with, as you can see here.
Yeah, that's right. And don't get it twisted. But no, hey, speaking of Alec, he wanted us to mention, and we proudly mention, our social media. So, George, you can call out the things, because I know enough to point my finger and blow up the computer.
Best place to find us, and we'll do this again at the end of the interview, but is on Instagram at Whitty Hall. It's just WHITTYHALL, and you can follow us there, stay up with everything we're doing.
Yep.
And that's the best place to do it.
And then you have your website, and you have your individual websites as well for each of you guys.
That's right. The website is whittyhall.com. Just WHITTY hall.com.
Right.
So
he does the Eller sizing, and you do the witticisms, right?
Yeah.
What's a George Whitty witticism?
Well, a typical example, we did a great old Sam and Dave song called I Thank You. And, killer soul song from the 60s, super funky rhythm section. And weirdly enough, the idea to do that tune came to me when I was walking on the docks of the Embarcadero in San Francisco. Woo. And across one of the big, harbor inlets or whatever it is, I heard this beat. And for some it was a really great beat. I could only hear the basics of it, but it occurred to me that to do that song. And then it occurred to me, I know exactly who should sing on this thing. So when I put something like that into the machine, I don't want to just do a cover version, and I don't want to just do kind of a plain vanilla remake. I'm going to dig in there and see what we can do, especially harmonically, to take it to a new place, but still honor the way they did it in the first place. Yep. So our version has a ton of harmony written into it. Lots of good chords that kind of build up to the choruses and stuff like that. And then, so I'll do that with it. I set up a really great demo of it. I programmed drums, bass, everything, just so everybody knows what the vibe is. And then we recorded that one live at ISS Inner Sanctum Studios in Coos Bay, Oregon. Great recording studio for anybody who needs that kind of thing. Had a super great band with Armand Sabaleko on bass, David Ford on guitar, and Aaron Haggerty on drums. Woo! Incredibly fun session. We have some pictures and some movies from that give the flavor. But we made videos of those, and when the record is released, we'll have really killer videos. So we played them. Then Ellis takes it home, and every time I get a notice that Ellis has sent me his vocal tracks, I'm like a kid on Christmas.
Yeah, he called me up, he was screaming. I said, George, settle down.
It's a thrill because he doesn't just do a few oohs and ahs. Like, the arranging skills are crazy. We have tunes where every octave of Ellis's 5-octave range is on one tune.
Any
There
way
he
to
is.
hear a sample of any of that to tease
Oh my God.
the audience?
Well, I mean, once they tune in, there's a
Walking
song
down
called
on Soul Street.
Yeah,
Give us that as low as
I
you
like
can give
that.
it, Ellis.
yeah, it's like a walking down on Soul Street side. Yeah,
You go lower.
That high A up there.
Ellis always tells me he has to squeeze something to get those
Yeah,
notes
right.
out.
Get up there.
A lot of
But
clenching.
Yeah, it's amazing because, you know, a lot of people say they have that, but you don't hear it on almost every tune on the record.
No,
Well,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just at the beginning of a tune called Miami, there's some notes that will rearrange your esophagus through God's grace.
Yeah.
I love
I like that.
But including right even in the first 5 seconds of that tune, Miami is a song that David Ford wrote for the record. And even in the very first opening of it, we've got the lowest low notes and some super high notes.
Yeah, it just and it
How did you know
like
what to put on the album? How did you know? I mean, one of the hardest things is always having all these songs, but then having to narrow it down to have it, you know, match the feeling and the flow that you want. How did you know how to select the songs for it?
That's a good question, because as we felt it, literally, we felt it. We knew as we were doing there's a tune I wrote, and George said, this has got to be on it, because I sent him a demo of it. It's in Your Ear, a tune I wrote called Some Days Are Meant for Rain. He said, this has got to go. And a tune.
That's the second single.
Yeah, it is. And another tune that I wrote and became one of Nelson Mandela's favorite songs. He told me personally, it's a tune I wrote called Why Should I Care? And when George did the mix on that, I said, you're trying to prove we are refreshable. That's beyond professional. Refreshable. And I knew, you know, from the opening lines with a little guitar, I did a little acoustic guitar work. Yeah, I just making it dance and hearing George with these, as my brother called them, sympathizers, with the synthesizers, would suck you in and make sure you're listening, and then take you on a ride. I love that. You'll see, brother. I mean, again, I mention these things just to give you a taste of,
sort of whet our appetite. Yes.
Yeah.
With this record, we started out with Hug Me, which is a certain kind of tune. We added Own Up, which is probably the most high energy thing, fastest tempo and so forth. And then we had this great collection of 4 tunes that Ellis had written, and Miami, which David had written. And then it kind of became a thing of what's missing. And I wanted to have something on there. To me, there is no two ways about this. Ellis Hall should win Best R&B Performance, not of this year at the Grammys, but of the century. And I wanted to come up with like a big 3/4 rocking gospel ballad where he could just go to the moon and back with the vocals. So I had this idea for a tune called Just a Prayer. And we worked on that. And then the only other thing we were missing was a kind of a simpler, you know, pop single. And I had this idea in a supermarket, just the phrase "die living." And I thought, okay, I bet I could make something out of that. So I went home and whacked up a demo of that, 3 hours or something, that still basically sounds like what we finished. Ellis helped me finish the words on that one, and he just sang the living daylights out of it. A lot of what we have on this record is really beautiful, sophisticated harmonies. They're not hard to understand or anything like that, but we listened to a lot of Billy Strayhorn. We listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder. We listened to a lot of Marvin Gaye. You know, we've listened to Shostakovich. We've listened to a lot of good harmony, and we know how to get it in there. Some of the stuff on this record, I feel like, fills a void that was left when Luther Vandross passed.
Yeah.
Luther had these ultra luxury, beautifully produced. Marcus Miller did a lot of these ballads.
Yeah.
We got a couple of those on here. Same thing, George Duke, The Void That He Left. We've got some stuff that's slotted right in there too.
Hey, brother,
So
I don't
once
know.
we had the first 7 tunes, it was just like, what do we need to complete this record? And between Ellis and I am confident that we could write anything. So I think we got a really great balance in it.
I don't know if you noticed, Brother George, but it sounds like on some of these, especially some of the ballads, like the voice is breathing in your ear. So
and that's how we like it.
However we mixed it, through God's grace, that's what, and however you mixed it, that's what it sounds like, you know. And brother, show me the way.
Yes, man.
Yes.
So once I got the vocals from Ellis on that track, I started thinking, like, this definitely could really do something as a single.
Yeah.
And the most fun that we have on that track is the last like minute and 15 seconds. Everything drops out but me on the Moog bass.
Yeah.
Ellis doing an outrageous vocal performance with the backgrounds and the lead and some percussion.
All that percussion it sounds like one of those old, not a taiko drum, but one of those drums that just got between your lap and you.
Right.
Easy for me to say.
Perfect sound. Wow.
Yeah, that one really came together. You know, the best songs always are the ones that just sort of flow out in a big lump. You don't have to fry away on it for a month trying to figure out what it should do and stuff. It just happens.
Right, like over editing and just let it flow.
Right. And, you know, the soap opera cues that I did, I used to have horrendous writer's block. But then you get into this thing. Ellis has written, what, 4,000 tunes?
Yeah, it's a lot of tunes.
You get that muscle in it.
4,000 soul, gospel, blues, pop songs. Yeah.
Yeah. And but writing all those soap cues where, sure, go ahead and spend 6 months on a 3-minute soap opera cue, but you're never going to make a living at that. You got to get your, you know, get where you understand when it's good enough and move on and maybe revisit, you know. So that was sort of how I got my songwriting process together, was writing 200.
Well, what like for you, George, what inspires you to write music?
Ellis Hall.
Yo, stop it.
It's true. A lot of the stuff I do is producing, it's mixing, it's arranging. It's, you know, I love to master records and so forth. So I haven't done a whole lot of writing for my own purposes. But you better believe me, when you know that what you do is going to get sung by Ellis Hall, you're going to write.
Yes.
You know, George, tell the truth. You know already, and I can say this about myself, you're a series D Ranger. That's a capital D.
Well, that became the question with a lot of this record, is that we had so many great tracks. It was like this embarrassment of riches.
Yeah.
And as Ellis puts it, we needed to be reducers rather than producers to get a nice, clean track out of it.
Right.
Yeah.
What inspires you, Ellis? I know Ray Charles, a big inspiration for you in your life as well. And what inspires you to pen fabulous music like you have for all of us over the years, Ellis?
Well, what's really interesting, and Ray happened to mention this to me, because he said it was officially in 2001 when we officially met and musically met. And the one thing he kept saying, boy, you got so much music in you, it's scary. I had to bleep it out because he had a lot of expletives. And then
he does his own bleeping.
No. Then he would say, why didn't some of my friends tell me I'm gonna have to kick some serious? Tell these folks they need to let me know. And so we got together because in 1958, one of the first things I heard. You know, Hallelujah, I just love her so. And I remember it coming over my mom's, it wasn't stereo at that time, but it was a big hi-fi set.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go to the volume and try and turn it up. Boy, what you doing playing with my stereo? Which wasn't stereo. Like, no, I didn't know why I was so infatuated. And I was inspired by so many people, from Little Anthony and the Imperials to Peggy Lee with her heaven sent voice. All these different people I listened, the Hi-Lo's, who later became the Singers Unlimited, all those harmonies, which later turned into Take Six, and now it's Take Ellis.
Now, here's an interesting factoid.
I love
Jim,
good harmonies when they're together. Oh yeah.
Yes.
You were talking about the great, the great music that you can hear under things.
Yes.
Underscoring.
One of the best spots for that is FM radio bumpers. FM 105.
Yes, the jingles.
And I did a few
and those chords are these amazing chords. That is the Singers Unlimited that did those.
Some of those. Yeah.
They did almost all of them.
And there was the other one that was big was the Ron Hicklin Singers too.
That's right.
They were the voice of everything. At one time, they were the Ray Conniff Singers.
Right.
They were the
a lot of Ray's records.
Partridge Family, Monkeys.
They
were the Monkeys.
They had they call it the Dippers, and I forgot the lady, Anita Kerr.
Anita Kerr Singers, yes, familiar with all of that. Yes.
Oh my God, they could sing, but I also
the harmony was incredible.
94.7 the wind. I was the first one to do vocals for that station.
Really? I love that.
Yeah.
That's all great stuff. The jingles, we've had a lot of jingle singers and session musicians and others on, and they talk about it. It's interesting because some of them would say, "Oh, I loved it, and we were excited when it would come out," and then others will say, "Well, it was just a job. It was just a gig. It was one of the things that I had to do that day." But for people that were listening, it was like, godlike. I'm like, "Oh my God, I love that." And whoever came up with ding, 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 NBC is a genius. You know what I mean?
A friend of mine, Will Lee, is one of the three vocalists. It's him and I believe Patty Austin and somebody else. Be all that you can be, because we need you in the army today. They did that in like the 70s, and they're still making money on it.
They're still making money.
We got to find us one of those, Ellis.
Hey,
what's up with the raisins? I'll be a raisin.
That's right. Tell us about the California raisin story.
Oh my God, working with
I dressed up as one for Halloween once.
Hey, Buddy Miles and I, doing and the first record went multi-platinum. The second record, because I did 2 records. The second was a Christmas record. Somehow they did not use the distribution, so it didn't sell as well, but now it's sold like crazy. And there's 5 tunes I did on that Christmas, 3 tunes I did on the first one, including a Billy Idol, Moni Moni. Amazing.
For Christmas?
And every time, if I go and do a symphony show, if I don't do Heard It Through the Grapevine, I'm in trouble.
You know what we should do, Ellis? When we play live, we got to get hold of some huge raisin costumes.
See?
We would freak people out if you actually showed up as a raisin and sang.
Do a white version of Heard It Through the Grapevine.
Yes, man.
That would be incredible. And you, George, you've worked with so many people. I mentioned Dave Matthews and Santana, Celine Dion, and Michael and Randy Brecker, of course, Shaka Khan, and so many others, Grover Washington Jr. Tell us about what it's like working with some of these incredible artists as well.
The Dave Matthews and Santana thing was really fun and interesting. I get this call from his drummer, who had been the drummer in the Brecker Brothers, saying, do you want to come down and do a Santana session? And they were recording at Electric Lady in New York. And I said, sure, I'll go. Of course, I'm going to go down and do a gig with David or with Carlos Santana.
Yeah.
So I go down, and they have only the bare bones of this song. It's based. We did two actually, and I love the second one, and I hope it comes out one day. But the one that came out is called "Love of My Life," and they didn't really have words on it. They were sitting in the lounge at the studio, kind of figuring out what it would be. And Carlos had some chords going on the guitar. And then, it was kind of like a very old school recording session in that way, that everything wasn't figured out down to the note. We were just going to go out there and get a vibe and get it to go. So we did. And, super great rhythm section. It was Dave Matthews, drummer, Carlos's bass player, a couple of Carlos's percussionists, and me. And Dave Matthews kind of scatting the lyrics. And we did it like 3 passes and got it basically in shape. And then somebody had an idea that we should do like an up-tempo burning Latin, coda to this thing. So, and it was going to be in a Latin style where the pianist plays what's called a montuno, or, that style of piano. And if you're a jazz musician, you should be able to play most things. Mm-hmm. And I knew what this sounded like. I'd toyed with it before. This kind of piano. That sort of thing. So
you think it, and he does it.
Right. We do 1 pass of it. Everybody's happy. I should have shut up and just gone home. But instead, I opened my big mouth and said, I think I could do one better. And that started this 2-hour thing with everybody just looking at George. And so I go out, I do a different one, and I say, there, I think that ought to do it. And Carlos is sitting behind the mixing board, and he goes, George, music is like a flower. It should be made to grow and flower in its time. So I went out and tried to play one that was more like a flower. And then I come back in and he says, George, music is like a woman. She must be caressed and nurtured into her best self and all this stuff. So I went out and tried to play one more like a woman. And then the percussionist has this idea that instead of going bing, that I would go bing, bing, boom, 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 bing, boom, boom, and I'm like, okay, I'll try. And
were you channeling Billy Joel at all? She's always a woman to me.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, I tried to keep it like a flower, but also like a woman, but also play this other stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up just using the first one I did.
Yeah.
So, everybody, most musicians are really great to work with. The Celine Dion stuff, I actually did the tracks with my partner, Gary Haas, and I never got anywhere near meeting her herself.
What were the tracks that you did?
I did a track called Declaration of Love, which was on Falling Into You. So my partner, Gary, was working for the production house that did a lot of those tracks, and they gave it to Gary and said, we got to do, by contract, we got to do this. But they weren't all that thrilled about it because they hadn't written it, which is where the immediate money is on these things. So Gary gives it to me, and he and I work up this really great version of it. And again, I took it, wrote a bunch of really cool harmony in it that all builds up to a big finish and stuff. She heard the demo that we did and said, I love this. I'm going to sing on it just like it is. And she did, and it went on the record. Gary played bass. We actually replaced my machine drums with a live drummer. Then I got a call to do 2 more tracks. I did Feliz Navidad for her Christmas record, and I did one other that went on the Christmas record. And, she's just an amazing singer. For someone who's known for what she did, the pop songs, she can belt out an R&B slammer, which is what Declaration of Love was.
Absolutely.
Hey, well, George, remember her first hit, Beauty and the Beast? she sang some nice R&B things in there.
Oh,
she did.
yeah.
She
Yes.
really did. And I
Did
think it was for Peebo. But hey,
mm,
fellas, I'm going to have
yeah.
to interrupt you because I have a session coming up very soon. I want to make sure we got everything in. But I'm going to have to leave you because it's about our ride.
We
And I'm not trying
definitely
to
have
interrupt
to
you.
ask you, Ellis,
Yes.
where the title, the Ambassador of Soul, came from, because you
That's a good
definitely are.
question. I'll tell you exactly. I don't know if you know of the works of a great conductor, Jeff Tyzik.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to say to him, we did a lot of symphony shows. And I said, I'm working so hard on my ambassadorship. And he snapped his fingers. That's it. You are from now on the ambassador of soul.
That makes so much sense. And you've worked with so many people, Ellis. I mean,
Oh,
Patti LaBelle, James Taylor, Stevie Wonder, Natalie Cole, George Benson. I mean, Herbie Hancock, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
I gotta tell you, one
Unbelievable.
time Stevie, he did this thing called over at the Forum and this house full of toys for Christmas. And he said, I want you to come down and hang. And I said, I could do that. What does he do? He gets our dear friend Diane Shore, brilliant keyboard and singer. The two of us come out on stage. We're singing together, Stevie, Diane, myself. In the middle of it, in his all I can say is crazy style, he stops the song. And what do we do? Impromptu, break into a humorous version of Three Blind Mice.
Diane is also blind, for what it's
20,
worth.
yes, Diane,
Yeah.
and 20,000 people exploded. It was
incredible.
it was hilarious. But you know what, bro?
Yeah.
The adventures, and we knew George and I knew the adventure would be strong.
Yes.
And from being the ambassador of soul to working with my dearest brother, he's more than my friend, brother George. We're just beginning. You better watch out, you know.
Yeah, Ellis, you've been doing this for a long time. Why do you love doing this so much, Ellis? Why does it bring you such blessing and joy? All of this that you do, music.
Because when you learn on this earth what you're supposed to do, and I constantly call myself a vessel, and I'm sure George agrees, because these things are handed to us. And if we don't pay attention, they go away.
Yes.
So I'm here to put my hands on it. And if it's a lady, not get too fresh. No.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's so exciting to me.
Thank you. Hey,
that's kind of my.
That's it.
No. But I know what we are here to do. And a lot of people don't know what they hear on this earth and other worldly things to do. So I know how blessed. And so I start from there. And like I said, over 57 years in the business, and I still look kind of good in the mirror.
You do look like $1 million. And music is very healing, isn't it, Ellis? It's a universal language.
Absolutely hearing. And when my late wife, Karen, one of the last things I was doing for her as she was making transition is playing gently and then leveling for her, on my guitar. And I always carry my guitar 9 times out of 10 different places just to be prepared for anything. Because in the airport, I will sit there and chicken pick my way into wherever.
Well, you certainly did that here on the Jim Master Show today.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me.
You're amazing, Ellis,
George,
and it's an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. And we're going to keep the porch light on for you. You're welcome back anytime, Ellis, anytime. And we hope to have you back. And I hope you enjoyed the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you, Ellis.
Don't make me talk about you, because I will in the most positive. You know that. And George, behave. If you talk about me being untoward, keep it light.
Well, you know what
Okay,
my father
Neil Ellis
told
is
me,
off
Ellis,
the
when I was
phone
7
here. I'm
years
going to tell
old?
you some stuff about Ellis that blow
Yeah,
your
yeah,
mind.
Yeah. My father told me when I was 7 years old, my father told me, and I used to go into our big hi-fi system in the living room, and I dug out all of my parents' records,
Oh,
and
yes.
my sister, we would listen to those, and on our little phonograph, and we scratched them all up. So years
Yep.
later, I found all the albums that I had scratched up that were my mother's and father's,
Oh,
and gave them back to them as CDs so they had them to play, not scratched up. But my father said, Jim, or in that case, Jimmy, when I was 7,
yeah,
always remember when somebody says something kind or nice to you,
yeah.
always take the time to thank them. Then ask them to please put those words in writing and address it management.
Oh, see, now that's classic.
I
But
tell you,
Jim, what
that's
a
it.
joy it is to be on your show. I'm honored anytime we can do it. As what, etc. Anything.
Thank you, Ellis, for entertaining us, making us laugh, and for so many years of music. You have a home here. You're welcome back anytime. Good luck with everything going on today. You're so busy. And
Yeah,
congratulations on the music with your fabulous friend and partner, George. We'll chat a little bit more with George as well. And it's a
yeah.
pleasure and an honor to have you here, Ellis.
And I say,
Bum. I love it. Thanks, Ellis. Take care.
love
See you
you,
later,
George.
Alice.
We
Bye.
love you back. Wow. What a guy, huh? It must have been a real hoot and a holler working with him, George.
Absolutely. The whole time, there's a lot that goes on when you make a project like this, especially when you don't just, eject a quickie. You're trying to make a record for the ages. There's a lot of interfacing. There's a lot of, you know, collaboration and so forth. We never even once had anything remotely like a disagreement. When when we're working on the music and Ellis has a suggestion, it just goes in. It's always great. The tracks that he's turning in are always beautiful. He loved every last nip and tuck and turn that I put, because I did most of the instrumental arranging, and then Ellis would play organ and guitar on it, and we would kind of work on things together. Just a fantastic experience. So that's been, to me, it's been one of the greatest things about this whole thing was just getting to know Ellis as well as I have.
Absolutely. And you've sort of enhanced, I mean, you both have these extraordinary backgrounds in the industry, but you both you have such great respect for one another and make each other laugh and collaborate in such a beautiful way. And when that's the scenario, when Ellis appreciates George's experiences, and when George appreciates Ellis's, we are the ones who are the beneficiaries of that, because then music like this results from that kinship, that friendship, that respect, as well as all of the incredible music prowess that you both have individually that you've combined collectively. That's a powerhouse of energy that's transferred into incredible music, right?
Yeah, and you work on something, you think it's great, you send it to Ellis, and he sends back these just off the chart, insanely great vocals, and it just inspires you to get back to the drawing board and make it even deeper still. And you get on the right side of that curve where just the inspiration isn't just adding but multiplying, and you
Right.
end up with a record like this one that we made. Like you say, lots and lots of experience too. I mean, my first gig was with an Elvis impersonator, and all the way from there to arranging pieces for the Los Angeles Philharmonic and Herbie Hancock with stops in between it, all these things. Everything Ellis has done. When I was just a little kid, well, I was 17 in Boston, Ellis was already running a super great, funky soul band there, and you take all that stuff and everything that we've learned, both musically and personally, across that long an amount of time, and you end up with a uniquely great record, I think.
You also teach too. You've been teaching online as well, right?
Yes.
How do you enjoy doing that?
Oh, very much so. What you're showing right there is my lessons from artistworks.com. And I filmed like a couple hundred lessons, starting right at the beginning of learning to play jazz piano. And then, getting into some pretty sophisticated stuff as you go. But I had a couple really important teachers who, in my opinion, kind of taught me how things really work in the land of jazz. And it's not what's most commonly discussed in books and in other lessons. And I consider it like the physics principles of that music. And I love kind of turning people on to what that is and seeing the light bulb go off. So if you go to artistworks.com and just look for jazz piano, that's me. And you can send in a little video of you working out on one of the exercises, and I respond with a video of my own. So you kind of get the personal touch in addition to like a really carefully thought out graduated library of piano lessons.
That's fantastic. That's something that, again, you've really enjoyed doing, huh?
Yeah, it's just great watching the light bulb come on, especially for people who've been struggling with it and can't figure out why it still doesn't sound right. I'm actually working on a book that will be kind of unique in the sense that it's my take of everything that I've learned over trying to figure this out over what is it? It's coming up on 55 years, but it's going to be quite funny. For one thing, it's going to be half theory and how you play, and half stories about how I learned this or various instances in which the lesson I'm talking about came into play. And then there will be some audio, a lot of audio examples and play along tracks and so forth. And I'm kind of a quarter of the way into that process.
Do you see you and Ellis coming together again with more music and more projects now that you've been doing this?
Yeah, in fact, Ellis has a line on some film projects that we would work on together. And that might be the next thing we do. Right now, we're doing a lot of promotion. We got a radio report a couple of days ago that we got 1,100 spins on FM radio, which is a lot for our single die living. And so we're trying to make sure that the record gets out into the world in the right way first, and then we'll be on to whatever happens next. And, it could be another CD, who knows? We got to kind of see how this one works out.
When you did this, did you have a listener in mind, or is this really for anybody? They're going to be moved, they're going to be inspired, they're going to just really fall in love with the sounds that you've been describing with Ellis on the show today. Is it something that's, what is the vision and the mission for you guys with this music?
The gold standard for me, and I bet Ellis would agree with this, is Stevie Wonder's Songs in the Key of Life. One of the greatest, if not the greatest record ever made. The depth of the songwriting, the funky playing, Stevie's off the charts singing, the message in those songs. And that, to me, I happened into that record because my mom bought it for some friends who were having a baby, because of course there's music on there that's perfect for new parents. Isn't she lovely? Of course. And then something happened and she didn't give it to them. So I snuck it and wore it out, basically. So there are several tunes on this record that actually we're trying to follow in the footsteps of Marvin Gaye, Sam Cooke, Stevie himself, and have some worthy message in there. Why Should I Care is a good example of that. Hug Me is kind of a what would we even call it? A paean to people who are suffering around the world in times of war. So there's kind of message stuff on it, but to me, Songs in the Key of Life transcends gender. I mean, there's a piece on there that's just a beautiful piece that Stevie wrote for basically classical harp and himself. He takes a little harmonica solo on there. But, so that's kind of what we're going for. I think people who have been longing for a really deep soul record will definitely resonate with this one. But, Die Living, for example, it's a little bit, it's in the vein of Boogie on Reggae Woman, which of course is another Stevie song, probably my favorite of his ever. And what I told Ellis we were looking for on that one was sort of like a front porch vibe, but a front porch with a Moog synthesizer on it. And that's kind of what it is. It's super catchy. It's not something that you can only appreciate if you're, a classic R&B listener. And so far, it's just playing on every variety of FM radio station. So it really is, a record. We didn't think about genre when we were doing it. We just thought about making a super funky or super meaningful, touching record. Just in every way we could. A lot of the tracks, the conversation that we were having earlier about how music is the universal language, it's really true. I mean, I think you could take Keith Jarrett's version of Danny Boy and play it for someone in the most remote place from New Jersey where Keith Jarrett lives. You could play it for people in China who don't speak any English or something like that. And they're gonna cry. It's weird that way. So, that's kind of what we were going for here is something as timeless as we could make it, and as reaching as many people as we possibly could. I think the lyrics will be something that everybody can relate to.
I can tell, and I've picked this vibe up when we chatted previously and in preparation for the show, and I can just feel the weight of this energy from you and from Ellis in just talking about this passion project. That this is really, I mean, you guys both individually and now collectively have done some extraordinary things in the music industry. And, everywhere you turn, you've had influences, both of you, in our lives. There's something about maybe this day, this time, the times we're living in, whatever it may be, the experiences and life lived you've had, Ellis has had, where you both are in your lives. There's something that I'm getting about this particular project of many, many different things you both have done that is extra special to both of you. This is something really, you speak so enthusiastically, passionately, both of you, about it. There's something extra that's hitting the two of you in a beautiful way. And maybe some of those things I described are reasons for it. Tell us about that.
I think we've done so much stuff, and, we're still in this business after all these years, but just the simple act of sending each other what we've done, each of us, I think, and I know I can speak for myself, absolutely, you get these tracks from the other guy and it's like, oh my God, this could very well be the best thing I ever did. And it really just does make you dig deeper, and then a lot of the stuff that we've done, I mean, for example, the track Why Should I Care? The opening line is, Jonestown, Guyana, you're so far away. And then, Israel and Palestine, you're so far away. And then the chorus, Why Should I Care What Happened, What's Going On With You Today? Ellis wrote that like 30 years ago, 35 years ago, when the Jonestown thing happened. it's still exactly that same message resonates today. So there's a little bit of a higher purpose thing with this. When I found out that I was going to get to do a track with Ellis Hall, I made sure that I remade this track that I knew as a rock and roll song by a Ukrainian rock singer. And again, a really great musician, this guy. But I knew Ellis was going to hear it, and I know how sophisticated he is. And I knew that if I did a really sweet orchestra with some trombones and bassoons and an oboe on the top and flugelhorns and, you know, the whole thing, that every last thing that I did, Ellis was going to hear it and appreciate it. So I made sure that was a real blowout coming from me before he, you know, the first thing he heard, I wanted to make sure that I knocked his socks off. And that has just continued as we've gone, you know. So we have a record that knocks our socks off. We sure hope that it knocks everybody else's socks off too. Very much a passion project, though. He would agree with me about that.
Really is, and I can feel that energy, and then the samples that I heard that were sent are exquisite. And you know, I asked this of Ellis before he took off to do the work he's got to do. What are some of the things that inspire him, and the blessings and joys in his life that inspire him to do what he's done so beautifully all these years? How about for you, George? What are some of those blessings and joys, and the blessings and joy you receive in doing this beautiful work in music?
You know, music is just the funniest thing. It's invisible. It's something that every culture developed. You know, I'm just amazed that every culture found a way to make a stringed instrument, like a pipe instrument. You know, I mean,
Incredible.
look at Japan. They have the kora, they have the shakuhachi, and they have the taiko drums. You go to Africa, they've got, you know, their flutes and their, you know, their stringed instruments, their percussion. Go to India, they have a completely different take on it. But every culture had a need to make music. And then it's just this most peculiar thing. It's like a super benign, benevolent form of radiation, because you can't see it. It happens and it's gone. I've been fortunate to be on so many stages in front of so many different audiences. I think it's 60 countries now. I haven't been to Australia and I haven't been to Antarctica, but I've been everywhere else and played. And, you know, typically the band is tuned into itself some, and we're providing a little thrill to each other that way. But when you're in front of a great audience, it's a unique thing and such a privilege to radiate whatever you have to offer out there and get this thrill back from them. And it's unlike anything else. It's unlike any form of communication that requires us to interpret words or something like that. It goes straight to the soul. And if you do enough live playing, you know, and Ellis has done at least, I bet that more than I have. It's so rewarding to get to do that. And to, when you're recording also, to know that if you put the nth degree into it, it's going to register. It's going to leave a mark, you know, and a positive mark. If you're working with an Ellis Hall, I mean, you can see that the guy is just the sweetest person God ever created. And when you're working with somebody like that, you just, you know, in addition to everything else, you hope the record is successful, you know, hope one day you see a little check and so forth. But you know that you're doing something just great for humanity is probably the best way to put it. So a lot of different vectors come in and add up to making this all a worthwhile thing. But this record, you know, it's just unto itself. Just Ellis and I know what we did here. And that is an enormously satisfying thing.
It really is. I can see and can feel it. And I think our listeners, viewers, and anybody that gets a chance to hear it all will feel the same way. The best ways to get the music, what would you say the best way? Is it to go to whittyhall.com and learn from there? Is it going to be on iTunes and Apple and all the music,
Yeah,
Spotify?
the single is already out everywhere. You're going to get to hear it probably tomorrow once I get these things uploaded, because I'm going to send you a sneak preview.
Can't
But
wait.
the single is out. It's what followed by 4 exclamation points. Ellis wouldn't accept any less than 4. He said it has to be what, like that. That's a good look at it. And the song is called Die Living. It's available on every streaming service and so forth. If you want to be in the loop when the rest of the music is coming out, that interview that you played a clip of was really a fun interview. And there's more clips of that, and there's clips of Ellis playing Tiny Dancer and so forth on our Instagram, which is Whitty Hall. That's just the name of it. It pulls it up. You'll see right away that it says what, WHITTY Hall, and that's our handle on Instagram. And that's where we really keep everybody updated on news. And there's just a lot of super great, fun content on there as well. But the tune is already distributed. It's on Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, Apple Music. You should be able to buy a CD of this stuff, and we'll release that news on Instagram as well. But also our website, whittyhall.com, I think you might even be able to order it from there. It's coming out on January 17th or so.
That's fantastic. Makes a great holiday gift.
I think it'll be out by then, and that's another thing, that if you're following us on Instagram, we're also on Facebook, TikTok, and X, but the main account is the Instagram account. And then you'll get notified when the whole thing is available.
Cool stuff. Wow. Yeah, that's great, huh? That's exciting. It's an honor to have an opportunity to spend this time with you, George. You're
it's my pleasure.
You're a legend in the industry, and I know that word is often overused, but just in looking at and knowing deeply the body of work, and even from cues for soap operas and working in television and everything else, it's extraordinary. And Ellis as well, gracing us with his wit and wisdom and his music and his just incredible joy that he brings, was an honor and pleasure as well. As I said to Ellis, we like to keep the porch light on for our guests. So the light is on for you, George, and for Ellis. And I hope you'll come back to spend some time with us here at the Jim Masters Show again. It really was an honor and a pleasure. I hope you'll spread the word about our series, and also hope you enjoy the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
Absolutely, my friend. And we'll keep you in the loop, and I'm going to send you a link, like a little private link, so you can preview the whole record.
And if you're together and you're performing anywhere, we're here on the East Coast and the New York tri-state, between Boston, New York, Philly, tri-state area of New York. Come,
what?
Let us know. Yeah.
We're in the works for a couple TV shows that tape in New York City, and we would be looking to add a handful of gigs out there to help pay for the flights and stuff like that. You are absolutely on the guest list for one of those.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. That'll be great.
Sure.
Excellent. George, you're the best. And once again, thanks to Ellis, and keep making the music, my friend. You've inspired us in so many different ways in music. We can't get enough of laughter and music in our lives, especially these days. We need it, because it's that, I would say, music, laughter, good food, and nature are things that are staples in our lives that we need to take time to enjoy, let breathe, savor, and surround ourselves with, right?
Yeah, and as we get saturated with particularly political news these days,
all the negativity out there,
the more we can lean on the rest of that, not for me, not so much the food part, but boy, I live up in the mountains, and taking a walk in the woods is just so cleansing and purifying. You almost feel like you're shedding some kind of mange or something when you get out there. So yeah,
for me it's the ocean too. I've always had a big affinity. We're along the coast here, so the ocean is not far, and grew up out east, further out east on Long Island. So the ocean was, we had the Atlantic on the south shore and the Long Island Sound on the north shore, and then
I know it well.
So yeah, are you a Boston boy? Are you Boston?
I lived in Boston for 4 years, and then I spent 16 years living in New York City. And if you were in New York, you remember where the Limelight was?
Oh, sure, yeah.
I was the first building to the left of the Limelight.
Where were you born?
Floor.
Where were you born?
I was born in Coos Bay, Oregon.
Coos Bay, Oregon. I was going to say, because people are probably listening saying, I don't hear any Boston. I don't hear Park the Car. And I don't hear the New York sound either.
No, my friends, when they do impressions of me, they always do this long drawl, which I don't think I have so much, but I have some kind of family accent or West Coast.
You know what it is? Wow. It's a tempered and steady pacing, which is good, because the rest of the world's like, blah, blah, blah. You have a nice steady and tempered pacing. It's a rhythmic, but a steady rhythmic way that you speak and present, which is nice. It's a soothing quality when everybody else is yelling and screaming and all the accents coming out. Do you ever do any voiceover work?
What's that?
You ever do any voiceover work?
No, it never occurred to me that this was a marketable commodity.
Well, you know what it is? You have a clarity. You articulate very well and inflect. Okay. I've done a lot of voice work over the years, and they look for that. And you have a nice, there's this clarity to your voice, to your speaking.
I'd be more than happy to take a crack at it.
That's it. I sound tonight on NBC.
Right.
Or today on the Jim Master Show. George, thank you very much again for spending all this time with us. You and Ellis, very generous with your time. Congratulations again on the music. Keep it coming for us. We look forward to more, and come see us again on the Jim Master Show. Okay, my friend?
Absolutely. And I want to thank you especially, because we had a couple misfires trying to get this together technically over the last month. You were super gracious. Thank you for hanging with us.
The pleasure is all mine. Good things come to those who wait.
Absolutely.
You be well, my friend. Take care.
Yep. See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye now. George Whitty and Ellis Hall on the Jim Masters Show. That is lots and lots of years of incredible music, and they are music legends for sure. And what a great conversation we had with both our special guests here on the Jim Masters Show as we celebrate their individual careers, decades in the music industry. So many songs, so much music, working with so many incredible additional legends that we've mentioned: Stevie Wonder, Chaka Khan, George Benson, Santana, unbelievable. And also continuing after all these years to bring the music together. And that's the key thing, together with this song and more great music. What, with the 4 exclamation points, of course, is the name of the two of them together, which I think is really, really cool. And again, you can go and get that music and enjoy it. There's the website. Of course, look for Whitty Hall on Instagram as well. There's their individual personal websites. We figured give them a little plug on that as well. And you can just see the joy in their faces there with the smiles and them coming together and collaborating, combining their decades of music and their experiences and their passion for it to create this rhythmic, soulful, funky music that I've always loved. Soul and R&B and Motown and funk and the music that you really heard a lot of in the 70s. I love when I hear the orchestrations too. When you have a 70s orchestra and you hear all the real instruments coming together, and of course, Ellis and George putting that all together with this fabulous, fabulous song and more music coming. Cool stuff, right? We thank them for joining us here on the show. And as always, we thank you. I'm your host, Jim Masters. Always a pleasure to have you here. We thank you for your time this time till next time. Hey, if you enjoyed the episode, here's something we always say. Please do give it a like, a thumbs up like for those watching on our YouTube channel. Give it a thumbs up like. Leave a comment for us. Drop a comment below, right under the episode. What's the music you enjoy? Are you looking forward to this music? What about our conversation did you enjoy? Of course, Ellis was with the very popular and iconic group Tower of Power for many, many, many years, being a part of that legendary group, Ellis Hall. He is a legend as well. And some great stories that they both shared about their amazing careers and the many people they've worked with as well over the years. So give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jim Masters TV. Very easy to do. You just click the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss any episodes. And of course, leave a comment, share the episode on your social media, and definitely come see us again. We thank you so much for being with us. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We hope you enjoyed this episode and all the episodes of JMS that we bring into your life. And we love having you a part of our life as well. We'll be keeping that porch light on for you as well, all around the world here at the Jim Masters Show. We love you all. Take care, be well, and keep the music alive. Cheers.